Alright guys, so as promised, we're going to do a little bit of a sort of Meet the Brewer segment on this Out and About video, and it's always quite cool when we can do this. It doesn't happen too often, but we were quite lucky, and I bumped into John when I was trying to decide what my second beer was going to be. So
you tied me down. You were like, I need you.
I need you. But yeah, this is John Kraszewski, the founder of Armada Brewing here in New Haven in Connecticut. So if we go all the way back, what did you study at university and things like that, and what kind of got you into beer in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm an official college dropout. I did go to college for a few years, found it wasn't the goal I wanted to achieve. I wanted to do something that was more my passion. At the time, it was automotive, so I was working on cars, and I was working at a few shops, and then I ended up going to a school for automotive as well, and I just got bored there as well because it was all the things I already knew since I had been doing it like basically all of my childhood. I say teenage years, growing up through high school. I was doing automotive school or classes at high school, so it was kind of redundant to me, and I just wanted to keep moving forward. From there, I ended up meeting a fella, Joe. I worked with him at Audi, and he ended up moving to Chicago, and he asked us to help him move. So I ended up taking the journey with him to move out to Chicago, and on my visit there, I loved it. I fell in love with Chicago. I ended up skipping my flight back home. The first time intentionally, the second time non-intentionally because there was a snowstorm, something like that. This is in January. I think the first time because there was a Super Bowl party we wanted to go to, and then ended up getting stuck there. Anyways, I came back home after pissing off all my bosses because I had now missed like 4 days worth of work. I told them I'm leaving town, putting in my notice, and I flew out to Chicago. Started off in the automotive industry, and I ended up working across the street from a liquor store. So I picked up a part-time job at this liquor store, and I walked in, and I mean, this place was full of craft beer. I had never heard of craft beer at all. And aisles dedicated. There was Goose Island, Founders, like you name it, Three Philosophers. There was like, so many beers, Brooklyn. And I was just like, what is all this stuff? Why, like, what? I'm like, no, it's beer. I'm like, well, what about like Bud Light? Like, no. This is like beer aisle.
This is proper beer.
And so I worked the cash register, and I would ask people as they were coming through about the beers that they were buying. Like, what do you like about this? Oh, this, and that. And I would take their word on some of them. I'd buy these beers, and I thought some were freaking awful. My palate had yet to adjust. And then time had passed, and this girl, Kate, got a job there as well. So Kate and I started chatting, and just wasting the time away, waiting for customers coming to the door. She had said that she had worked down the street, or she does work down the street. There's a brewery called Half Acre Brewing.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, you should check it out sometime. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll give it a whirl. So I go into Half Acre, and small. I think they had a 7-barrel brew house at the time. It was very tiny, maybe 15, and I was blown away. And I remember asking one of the questions, like, how did you guys get started? And it was like, we started home brewing. What do you mean home brewing? And this cycle just kept spinning out, and it was like, all right, I can make beer at home now. All right, where do I go? So I started shopping at a local store. I ended up getting a job there, and after a short period of time, became a store manager, got to run it. I was making beers. I also got to watch a bunch of smaller breweries become bigger breweries, or home brewers become brewers. Pipeworks, when they first started, they were home brewers at the store that I managed. 18th Street Brewing, Microphone, Beguile, Spiteful. There was a bunch of them. Established breweries at the time were Metropolitan, Goose Island, and there was a few other ones. I can't remember all of them, but it was kind of cool because I got to watch all these home brewers become professionals. And that's where my passion really sparked. Was like, oh gosh, I can make this something real. I can take this to the next level. And I pitched the idea to my girlfriend at the time, Alexandra, who's now my wife. And I had said to her, like, hey, like I want to start a brewery. Down for it? She's like, yeah, sure. You know, being a supportive partner.
Yeah.
And wrote a business plan, had the whole intentions to move it out to Chicago, or do it in Chicago. And then Alex became pregnant with our daughter Skylar. And I was still working, doing it, but I kept pushing off the project and whatnot. And I had proposed the idea, because we came here on a holiday to Connecticut to visit our family. I'm from here, I should say. And we went on a brewery, like a tour of breweries, and there was like 7 breweries at the time. There wasn't many. So I said, hey, listen, Chicago has 80 breweries right now, close to 90, I think it was at the time. And what if we open in Connecticut? Like it's more, like the market has yet to grow and fully mature. And she said, that sounds like a great idea. You know, we're going to be leaving our friends in the Chicago area, but we'd have my family here, at least to help us with the startup process. And then from there, I moved into town. I was looking for properties, couldn't find anything that we wanted right away, and I was also having a hard time getting funding. So I had some money saved up, had a few family friends invest in us initially, and finding a space to collateralize or just help us get the initial funding was the toughest spot, and also something that we wanted. We didn't want just like a run-of-the-mill facility. I always wanted a brick building, which I have 5 years later, but it didn't happen. That didn't happen initially. Couldn't find them. I remember driving down the street many a times, like years after year after year, saying like, I hope someone does something with these buildings. I hope somebody does something with these buildings. So, being the impatient person I am, I said, you know what, we're going to start off how some of these contract breweries I watched do it in Chicago, or gypsy breweries. 18th Street started within Pipeworks, and so did some of the other guys, Microphone as well. And so I had proposed the idea to a brewery out here, Overshores, say, hey, what if I was to come in here, I'm going to brew the beer, I'm going to package the beer, I'm going to sell the beer. I just need a facility, you're the license, you know, you're the federal license. I need a space, and I don't have the money or anything else to get the rest going. He took a chance on us. We went in, started producing our beer, putting it out to market. We were self-distributing for the first couple of years. And then from there, it grew where we were now at a point where we had a distributor, and we were always looking for properties the entire time that we were in business. And prior to our business starting, we just haven't found the property. And finally, I just happened to be driving down the street during the pandemic. So that was a big, like, crucial pivot point. When everything shut down, we lost like a third of our business. And I said, well, we need to figure out how to get that revenue back up. And obviously, creating our own venue would have helped us because people would come buy directly from us. But our previous business model was you just ship everything out, and then it sells in time due to being on the shelves or in bars and restaurants and whatnot. So we started, I was driving down the street again one day, and I just happened to see a sign on the door, or on the building, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go check it out. So I arranged a meeting, and I had coordinated with all the city officials and whatnot to come check out the building, and I pitched the idea I wanted to create a brewery in here, 2 floors, and I had one idea, and they told me I couldn't do it, but they said you could do it if you do it this way. And said, no problem, we'll make it work. So they came on in, and we met all their criteria, got it up and going, and now we're 6 years plus as a business. We're a year and then change as our own like retail shop now.
So you've been in here for a year and a bit.
A year and change. And I should say, my wife, Alexandra, me and her kind of like, we run the whole thing. So it started off as me taking care of the business. She ran the household, paid the bills, whatnot. And then once we came to a point right before COVID, she came on the team. And then that's when all this other stuff flourished into what it is today.
Yeah. So it's a family business?
It is a family business. Right. It's always been a family business from the beginning in terms of all the effort. But now we really are work together every single day. Our child's here. She works, we put her to work when she can, when she wants to.
I actually saw Skylar kind of walking around a little bit in the brewery and things like that. So
yeah,
that was pretty good. So we were talking a little bit earlier on. You'll have seen in the video the little kind of a little sort of panorama, if you like, of the brewery itself. And I was saying to John that it was kind of surprising because I've seen so many different beers from you. There's a whole variety of beers, but it's actually there's not so many tanks, and it's actually quite small, you know, in terms of steelware. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, like, what is your sort of output per year at this point?
We don't have a full year schedule because we were producing at other places. We still haven't brought all the production here, so we're producing in multiple different, you know, licensed production facilities. Anything that goes out into the distribution, I can't say anything, but our primary brands that go into distribution are produced at much larger facilities because we need to make more volume for that. But here, our draft lines consist of 12 beers, and of those 12 beers, you can only get, of those 12 beers, 10 of them are only available here. Let's just say that. I think that number's correct. In cans and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that varies from time to time. That just happens to be what our current numbers are on that. But we don't we put a lot of stuff in-house while we're just keeping core brands, what people want to drink out in the market. And that's how we do it. In terms of maintaining it, we have 4 fermenters and 2 bright tanks. But our fermenters can also be utilized as fermenters and bright tanks because they're called uni-tanks.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So though they're not the dish bottom, we can still utilize them, and how we just move the beer between the tanks as necessary.
Oh yeah.
So
because I was thinking the 2 longer tanks were your lager tanks.
So they are lager tanks. So those are long-term storage bright tanks, basically.
Okay.
So if we need to lager, like our lagers, we try to do from brew to package 28 to 30 something days. And we do it cold the entire time.
Yeah.
So we don't do any like temperature rising or nothing. We just keep it cold the entire time, and we wait for it to finish. And that's our technique. But that requires us to move the beer after a certain point, because once the fermentation has completed in the vertical tanks, we need to get the yeast off of there, or else it will create like bad flavors.
Oh, yeah.
So then we throw it into the storage tanks, or the horizontals, and then it gives it like a wider area, and it precipitates out quicker.
Oh, okay.
And if we need to transfer it a third time, which is never really the case, our yeast does fluctuate, their option is to go, you start in the top tank, and then you can transfer it down if needed. And just gravity helps it a long way.
Just does its work.
Yeah.
Speaking of lagers, though, I've actually not tasted, had a look at this yet. So you poured, this was the Tomb of the Pharaohs?
This is the Tomb of the Pharaohs. This is a German Pilsner lager. A German Pilsner inspired lager, but with a kind of like a little bit of an American touch. And by that, I mean we're just using non-traditional German hops. We're using more modern day German hops, Hallertau Blanc. This beer in general is just it's Pilsner malt and Carafone, and that's it. And so that's the gist of the beer. And then the hops are Northern Brewer and Hallertau Blanc, and we love this beer. It's like one of our favorites we make in here. But that modern day hop gives it like that fruitiness where it's not so earthy and woody. It's more of just a citrusy kind of tang to the end of the finish.
Yeah, because I mean it's interesting. For those who don't know, Northern Brewer, that's actually, I forget what percentage alpha acid that is, but Northern Brewer is actually 12%. That's quite heavy. But it's that's quite a popular hop to use in doppelbocks and things and Dunkos to get the fruitiness. I find the kind of red fruit characters. Yeah, that's what Weltenberg and you know Weinstefan use that as well. It's a very popular doppelbock hop that actually for those red fruity notes. Hallertau Blanc is, you could probably describe that as Europe's answer to Nelson Sauvignon because it has that
very similar characteristics without the harshness.
Yeah, not it's It's 11% alpha acid, I believe. And yeah, it gives you more of a gooseberry rather than the white grape, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more oily, but you always find, even if you think of Mandarina Bavaria, there is another new German hop recently, but you always...
Cool melon.
Yeah, that one's around as well. That's not the one I'm thinking of.
So we use them all. We use all of those, and this is like the one lager that we use those modern day hops in. I think you really need something that kind of crosses over between those IPA drinkers and lager drinkers, and this is the beer for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, in Germany, it's fascinating to go and see. You've got all these really well-trained German brewers now having a go at brewing American styles. I mean, you're finding Hefeweizens in Franken and Franconia in the north of Bavaria, and they were never from that area. So a lot of the brewers are trying different styles from across Germany. Like, in Munich, they're trying to brew Alp beers and all this kind of stuff. So it's really fascinating to see how this is kind of going together, actually. But yeah, no, these new generation German hops, Hallertau Blanc is potentially my favourite, but Mandarin in Bavaria as well.
Oh, another great one. We use them both. We use them in our Helles lager and our Tune of the Pharaohs have both of those hops in it. Yeah.
Because this was, I need to taste this. I've not actually tasted this.
Oh, he's right. So it was poured. We did pour on side. All of our lagers get pulled on side pours.
Yeah. But let's have a taste of this one. Tomb of the Pharaohs. What was it? 5% exactly. Ooh, that's really nice. I mean, for me, it's quite like it's kind of like a Keller lager actually. And the interesting thing is the bitterness builds in the aftertaste for me. Because for me, the Pilsner actually as a style originates from the Czech city of Pilsen, which in the Sudetenland or Bohemia, it was it was lived in by about 50% ethnic Germans, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and 50% Czechs. But the Pilsner was developed by a Bavarian brewer who was a bit of an arsehole. He was thrown out of the city 2 years later, and his beer became Pilsner Urquell or Plzeňský Pastroj. So that's, and for me, the German Pilsners are always a bit dry, like they're really dry, really crisp, but at the same time they're quite clean. And the Czech ones are a bit more kind of yeasty and kind of creamy in a sense. So this one for me, your Pilsner here for me, it has a bit of the kind of dryness of the German Pilsner, but at the same time it's got the kind of almost creaminess of the Czech, the original Czech one.
It's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
We don't know what to affiliate that to, because if you had the Mexican lager and we use the same yeast between the beers, but like how it drops out is really reflected. I mean, these glasses are much wider, but this does have a little bit of, let's call it like a haze to it. It's not completely bright, and we don't use any finings in our beers.
Oh yeah.
None of our beers at all get any like finings, like biofine or isinglass, none of that. We let it naturally drop, and this after 28 days, 30 days, we found that it maintains a little bit of density, and we think it has to do with those modern day hops. Because if we did the same exact recipe with Czech hops or Hallertau, Mittelfrüh, or Sahas or Tettnang, like our beers drop bright. But this has a little bit of, I mean, the color is super strawish in general, depending on your lighting.
Yeah,
it is the same beer.
Yeah, no, it is definitely.
It is the lighting.
It's just the lighting, yeah.
But when you look at it, it is super light in color. But we like that because it's just a nice little unique touch to it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I said it was Keller, to me, like that sort of more hazy beer like this is I always, my German friend who got me into beer lives in Bamberg, and that's Keller beer territory.
Yeah.
And so when I see a beer like this, I think, oh yeah, like Keller Helles or something like this.
It does remind you of that in many ways. To us, Keller beer is just young beer here. So like if we were to do a Keller beer, which we would market it as that, would just be a beer that we pack, like we pulled a keg off the tank early while it was still hazy from the yeast. And that's how we would do it. But I think it does have characteristics of it, even with the same amount of aging time as some of our other lagers.
Because for me, I think it shows you a bit more the kind of, for me, the German Pilsner is quite dry on the Pilsner malt side of things. So this one's showing you like the kind of smoothness of the earthy and herbal character, and the kind of dryness of the Pilsner malt. For me, that's German. The hoppy character, the spiciness makes me think a bit more Czech, and the kind of smoothness of the mouthfeel makes me think a bit more Czech. So this is kind of one, for me, that kind of, it straddles the line between the Czech and German. And we were saying this earlier, you can debate the styles of beer all day, but the question always should be, is it a good beer? And that's a really nice Pilsner beer, this one. That is really good. And I think for the American drinker who maybe doesn't kind of know the real intricacies like that of the beer, it shows you a very good, well-rounded take on the style. But obviously the more hoppy character you're getting in this, it is German hopped. It's all German hopped, isn't it? But I think that's a really nice beer, that. I mean, you could easily tan a few of these and be very happy afterwards with it. You could easily, that's a very Scottish word for you, tan the beer. Just
tan the beer, I like that.
It, yeah.
So have you ever heard of Firestone Walker, like Pivo Pills?
I know Firestone Walker, but not that particular.
So they have one. I remember that was like the Pilsner that really kind of brought me to the next spectrum. And I think that that Pivo Pills has a lot of those flavor characters. I mean, at least my first interpretation of it. It may have adapted over time. First time I had it, that was kind of what inspired this recipe. I don't know what they use for hops or whatnot, but we used the Hallertau Blanc in here. It was a classic German grain bill, German yeast with more modernized hops.
Oh yeah.
And I think that when we have the interpretation of like what we're trying to produce when we're making this beer style was that, and I think I would love to see them side to side, comparison, where they stand. Yeah.
I mean, for me, the pills in Europe that's a really interesting one is Tico Pills by Birrificio Italiano. There's Italian. This is the thing that we were both talking about this earlier. We both love lagers, and for me, it's really nice to see that lagers are getting a bit more of attention. So, obviously, in America, Mexican lagers become quite popular. Japanese rice lagers, and that's been a surprise for me coming over here to see how popular the lagers are. I mean, I've had Czech Tmavis, I've had Czech Chernies, the Mexican lagers, the Vienna lagers. I've had a whole host of different lagers when I've been filming these out and about videos. This was the first Mexican lager that I tried in the States, actually.
What did you think about it? Have you had like a commercial Mexican lager?
I had, I've had Modelo Pacifica. I really like Modelo Negro, actually. And
it's my favorite.
I've obviously had Corona
a
good few times. Because the Mexican lager, I felt they can always have a bit of rice and a bit of corn in them. I thought yours was quite corny leaning. And I found it had quite a bit of corny sweetness on the back end, but it was really nice and really easy to drink as well. Definitely one of the sweeter ones I've had.
It was it finished that. So that was our second time ever making it. It's the exact same recipe. We didn't actually change anything. People loved it so much. That one ended up being sweeter for some reason. We don't know. We've investigated all of our numbers, everything, but so I was curious, like, what was that? Our first version of it was drier, more of a dryness of this, but people tend to like it regardless. I do want it to be drier. You want it to be drier.
It's interesting. You see, I found it was quite an oily one for me. But this is the thing, I've been telling people about this. For me, the American lagers always tend to be a little touch sweeter and just a little bit wetter almost, which makes sense because of the humidity here, and it's probably just water profile and things like that as well.
I would definitely coordinate the water profile. Our water here is super soft. We don't have Germany water, but when you compare it, it's very close here. I mean, softness, super low. Yeah.
Interesting. So, on that note then, if you had to pick, I think this is always quite an interesting one. If you had to pick, what is your favourite style of lager and what is your favourite style of ale? What would you say?
Okay, favorite style of lager. man, this varies so much throughout the season. So I always tend to be drinking the lager that we are making that's of the era. And maybe it's, because it's fresh, whatever, but the freshest. But if I was to choose my favorite lager, it would absolutely be the Mexican lager style, which would fall into a Vienna, because it actually encompasses, they're not too far different. The only difference between our Vienna lager and our Mexican lager is that we use corn to help dry it out. So I would say a Vienna lager would be the best. And I would say it's the most year-roundish, because it's just enough body for you to have in the winter where it's not too heavy, but also in the summer you can do it where it's not too dry in the winter time. It gives you enough heaviness, but in the summer it's not too heavy where you're feeling like over encompassed. So it's just enough dry in the summer. Vienna lager for that. For ales, I would have to go with just a simple pale ale. I would say a pale ale would be my go-to. Dryness being another factor of it.
But West Coast or New England? I think this is the thing with paleos these days. You have to be more specific, I think.
Yeah. You hear the story all the time. Everybody is really kind of inspired by Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Nowadays, it's too much for me. I do like it just a little bit more balanced, between hoppiness and bitterness. So I would say in between East Coast, West Coast. Yeah, Sierra Nevada was one of those beers. Truth be told, actually, Magic Hat number 9 was one of those first beers that got me into beer, which I think it's just a pale ale with apricot, right?
I've actually never tried this one. I don't know that.
I don't even know if it's still around. It was one of those beers. It was kind of like a staple. It was one of my first beers. It was just enough bitter, had enough sweetness, and I think as you become older, you want drier and drier beer for some reason. You want it sweet up front, getting introduced to alcohol, and maybe kind of just dry it out over time. But I also didn't have the beer culture that Europeans have. I think if I walked into a situation like that, it might be different. But it seems like Europeans want to make American beers, and Americans want to make European beers. It's almost like ass backwards.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, but one of the things I always like about breweries is when you go in and you see they're very well rounded and they try lots of different stuff. I think that's always interesting to see. Because you were telling me earlier that you focus more on lighter styles, like you don't tend to do too much. I was going to ask you about that too, because I saw you've got a bunch of barrels down there, obviously for a barrel program. Is that sour beers, or is that some barley wines and imperial stouts and stuff?
What you see on site here is all sour beer. So it's all mixed fermentation sour stuff. And that's a whole nother episode worth of talking. But yes, so what I meant in terms of lighter beer is just low ABV is our primary focus. We want to try and keep most beers in the 5% and below.
Yeah.
We want people to come here to be able to drink in session with their friends, have a good time throughout and not feel bloated, drunk and belligerent. Just there's certain feel you want to be able to have multiple beers. I think Kolsch is a really good style for that. It's you want to go with your friends, have multiple Kolsch beers, and you can have it. And our intention is can I drink 2 of these in one sitting and feel fine?
Yeah.
Can I, do whatever? Most guests come in for an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah.
They can have 2 beers within an hour, that time frame. That's what our goal is.
Yeah.
And they're also getting home safely.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're a lot of driving around here. Even though it is a city, we are in an industrial area, so it does require some driving. So responsible driving, responsible drinking, low ABV is kind of our premise. And I think it's also beer's better that way.
Because this is interesting for me, because obviously in Europe it's this is a real difference between America and Europe, is that all the places like this would be close to the centre or walkable from the centre of town. So you go there, you get the train or the bus home or something like that. You can't really do that in America.
That's just all around America. Just how the structure, how it's built out. Most people just have regular pubs they go to, bars.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm thinking to sort of round off then, we've gone through how the brewery was established, we've talked about you like the lighter styles of beers like paleos and lagers and stuff like this. What would you say about what kind of future plans do you have for the brewery, and how do you see it kind of growing in the next wee while?
Man, that's an in-depth question. I think, we're just going to continue. Our plan is always to grow. We are a family-run business. We want to, grow to the point where hopefully one day we can retire. But as a growth model, we want to make ourselves like a destination location, a place where people want to be, a place where people are just enjoying their beer. I don't know if I've ever really considered out a plan to be like a big national distribution brewery. And I don't know if I ever want the headache of that. Yeah. I think the idea is I like the intimacy of our facility. I like the fact that I can actually walk away. I mean, our tap room is like filled right now. I'm serious.
Oh yeah.
My wife is running it, so But the fact that I can even walk away and have a conversation with you is meaningful to me, and hopefully it leaves a meaningfulness to you. I don't want to have that separation between customer and business.
You want the family-run thing, not necessarily the corporate.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of being able to walk away from time to time, but I also like the fact that the relationships that we build over time and whatnot are there, and if we can maintain that in perpetuity to be successful, and it becomes that. I think there's a lot of breweries out there that really have a big disconnect between their actual consumer base, whether it be the fact that you never see the owner, or the fact that they just like say, hey, wait in line, grab my beer, and then get the fuck out of here and piss off. And we've kind of seen that a lot with today's beer culture. I just think a lot of beer drinkers maybe like to be dominated and told what to do. But we don't want that. I think it's not what beer culture is about. The idea is you can come in here, we can talk about anything, political beliefs, whatever, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Like the idea is like we want a really cool space for you to come in and hang out, and it's not. That's our goal in perpetuity, and hopefully pass it down to future generations and become that spot known as that. If we can expand and get more cooler, more outdoor space, that would be really nice around here. We are an industrial park, so there's not much really going around of us to inhibit us. It's just more about being able to acquire it over time and create cooler atmospheres. Right now we have a market going on outside, and also it's like a blistering 90-something degrees. So everyone's inside hiding, but being able to maybe create a different atmosphere, we can do the markets where people aren't getting beat down.
No, that's it, exactly. It's a nice little spot, as I say, for me. And you're not too far from the centre of New Haven. It's like a mile, but
that's all it is. It's literally a mile and one bus or one road from downtown.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, like, that's nothing to walk in Europe. I don't know how that is for Americans, but I'd quite happily just, you go up there, you turn left, and straight to the town.
Yep, that's it. That was it. And that was one of our considerations about it too, is like, what is the difficulty from downtown? And so from every major hotel in New Haven, we are, that I would say from downtown and along the coast, we are less than 1.5 miles away. So you can walk here in 1.5 miles. But people, it may not be the most luxurious walk with like a bunch of street stores. You're walking through open land. It's an interesting part of New Haven, and underneath highways and whatnot. It's
really nice. The last thing I think, because we've covered quite a lot, I think the last thing I would ask you about, because the thing that attracted me to the, I forget the name of the double IP that I...
Fortune
Raider, that's it. So the thing that got me onto Armada Brewing was I just saw the artwork and saw this. It's very kind of like a mix of mythical seafaring kind of artwork, and obviously the Armada symbol, as you saw, it's like a ship's bell with the A, and then the hop cone's meant to be the kind of bell ringer, if you like.
I'm gonna have to fucking explain it to you.
Yeah.
I have to explain it to so many people. You got it. Yeah, at least you saw that. Yeah.
I actually saw it. The thing is, I actually saw an interview that you did.
All right, so you heard it.
Yeah, when I was researching for that video, I actually saw an interview that you did.
Yeah.
You had longer hair then.
Oh yes, yeah.
You were presenting to some board.
That was a Brewbound.
Yeah, that was Brewbound. Yeah,
exactly. That was
exactly.
Brewbound. Yeah, we won $5,000 from that. I always forget about that. I don't forget about it. I should say, like, I don't really ever use it as an introductory to like how we got started, but I don't know what the influence of that interview was on our branding identity, but it was one of those things that like really was a fire sparker for us and just in general. Like when we won that, we're like, holy smoke, like this is really cool. It was an amazing opportunity to win. It was a really good acknowledgement. A very memorable experience. I brought one of our good friends, Mikey, out with us and Brewer to like come out and enjoy the experience with us, with me in Portland, and we learned a lot. We got to ask all these questions early on, and it was interesting seeing like the big side of it to where we are now. But you were talking about branding and identity and Fortune Raider, so I want to back up to that. Was there something particular you want to say?
I was thinking, obviously New Haven's right on the coast. Is the kind of coastal theme because of this, or where does the name Armada come from, and the sort of seafaring imagery, if we can call it that?
Yeah. So the whole identity I wanted to create when making a beer brand was to establish a story and keep it ever evolving. And we didn't want to just say like, oh, here's a story plain out and simple. The idea was more of like a Dungeons and Dragons-esque type of thing where we create characters, places, locations, places, or like items and whatnot, and you as a consumer would be able to tell your own story behind it. When we first started, we didn't actually have artwork. It actually just said like the name on a bottle. You were like, well, who's the Cursed King? And who is this person? What's that? But it really kind of brought it all together when we, about a year and a half in, we said, we got to change it up now because people are just not, no offense to the majority of people, they just may not have this creative like imagination. I played a lot of video games. I listened to a lot of nowadays I listen to a lot of podcasts. Back there, watched a lot of TV shows and cartoons and whatnot, and all the inspiration is historical. All the inspiration is from things I had seen cartoon-wise, but putting it into your own storyline. So taking those inspirations and making them of your own. And simple things such as like the Savage Queen with the vanity mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall kind of deal, but also the fact that like it's just gorgeous, very dominant woman, but in the mirror she's an evil witch. Things like that. Things. Well, I have to credit our artists and our graphic design team because I tell them base premises and they really take it and they make it what it is. I come up with the base ideas and say, all right, this is the Cursed King, like it's of this identity, and they really put it. I'm not an artist by any ways. I have the eye, but I can't do it. I'm just not that talented. So then we have other characters like Notorious Gypsy. I wanted like this mystical character that kind of people would come to and be able to ask questions, and that's where the idea of like the fortune teller-esque gypsy. You can't really see it around the corner. Immortal Prince. I wanted like this badass half-dead person it's 10% Imperial or triple IPA, and the idea was like this thing is gonna fuck you up. Yeah, like that was like that, like branding from the style of beer to what it is. And same thing with the Knights Executioner, which is that one over there. It's a 15% Russian Imperial Stout.
Oh yeah.
So like that, like I have to have like as big as the beer gets, like the eviler it is, the more demonic it is or whatnot. But the idea was, the base premise was to create a storyline that can be told by anybody, but also keeping it fluid. And now there's a few beers from time to time that we throw out there that are completely off-brand because they're either collaborations or fun things. But all of our like main brands all fall in line with like a certain storyline. You know, you have the Curse King IPA, Savage Queen Double IPA, Sorcerer's Temple Dunkel Lager is a location, Neptune's Dagger Pale Ale, Neptune being the god of the sea.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he has a trident, but like Neptune's Dagger was just like the little side weapon of him. That's why it's not a big one, you know, a big beer.
Okay.
It's kind of like, it's a small beer, and that's why it's a pale ale.
Okay.
Mermaid Cove is a location where they're going to draw you in based on its beautiful looks. We had it earlier, and the idea is like it's just going to pull you in forever. Song of Sirens, kind of an idea. That's why the evil mermaids.
Yeah.
The Herbalist is a fun idea where we have this character which is a little bit more steampunkish than our other brands, but it's this guy, it's a botanist that creates elixirs and whatnot for you. That being the herbalist, referring to weed, the herb, whatnot. It's danky, it's spicy, it's more falls in that line of like what weed would be and smell like. I'll make some noise here. Sacred Throne. So the entire identity was Armada. Like it's a big storyline. Armada's Sacred Throne is where the queen sits upon. The king, the queen is who wrote. I'm going to come back to the picture. The queen, I was trying to look around.
Yeah.
The queen is who rules the kingdom. She's the evil ruling queen. And she dominates everything. But so it's the Sacred Throne was basically the throne on which she sits upon, which is all made out of gold. So we want like a golden-esque lager, and that's where the Hellas lager was. She's the god of hell. Or no, she's the queen of hell. And I try to interpret that along there.
Yeah.
What else?
I think you've covered.
I covered those ones, all right? And then it continues on from there, because there's other brands that are not identified within the building. So Passage to the Underworld was kind of like Sharon the Ferryman. You know, you pay the toll to pass on, you know. You ever hear the story where they put the coins over your eyes and you die? Sharon the Ferryman. And then Passage to the Underworld is that.
Yeah.
Serpent's Crypt is another kind of thing. I think even Harry Potter touched base on it, where you know, like the snake was in that crypt on their way to go fight Voldemort. But it's a lot of mythological lore. Celestial Union is actually one of the most recent beers we had, and that was inspired by the idea of Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest is a celebration of a marriage of a king, famous king and queen. I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, so it was Augustina was the first one.
Yeah, there you go. You know exactly about it. I can't remember the whole details, but the idea was like it was a celebration of a marriage. So we're like, well, why don't we have a marriage underneath the stars? You know, celestial union. Boom, and that was the idea for that. So that's our most recent one. But all of it is inspired by me thinking about the type of beer that I want to create, how it's going to be perceived to the customer in terms of flavor or whatnot, and then also like how can I incorporate that into the storyline. And I'm missing a Grand Council is our it's our American beer. It's not a fest beer. It's not an Oktoberfest beer. It's American. So, you know, and that's the Grand Council. I'm missing something else. And then we have other fun ones that we throw out there, like the Princesses in Another Castle.
Oh, okay.
That's a Mario reference. That's me just like being silly, because everyone keeps asking, where is the princess? And we call this building the Armada Castle. Yeah. So there's a throne room downstairs and the Queen's Lounge upstairs. And so I'm like, the princess doesn't exist. I'm like, and so they're like, they come to the castle and they're like, hey, where's like, all right, I see the king, I see the queen, who's the prince? Where's the princess? They go, sorry, the princess is in another castle, and they don't get it. And then if you give them a moment, they go, oh, it's a Mario reference. So that's why we made the beer Princess in Another Castle, and it's a peach pale ale.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
So it's little quirky little things like that. And there's probably other brands I'm forgetting about. Forbidden Kingdom. So we have Enchanted Kingdom and we have Forbidden Kingdom. And they're both extremely light beers. We have a Kolsch and a blonde ale. But there's one that's really like enchanted, beautiful. And you have the Forbidden Kingdom, which is all about death. And it's like, you know, cannibals are there. Yeah. So you have two different
sides of the coin.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I do think one thing I would say is that you should put a little bit of a blurb on the can about the inspiration of the artwork. That's probably something that you should add to it. Because,
it is something we have considered as maybe like a blog. You know, yes, it is something. So it has been considered. But the idea is we do want people, so a lot of it's my imagination, but we do want people to be creative in their own ways and like actually wonder.
Interpret it.
And interpret it in their own way. Because I would like for someone to come to me, and it actually has happened because we get Dungeons and Dragons players, we get people who do like video games, and they come in and they go, hey, can I tell a story about your beers? They go, yes, that's the whole point. Like, so they want to do like cool like role-playing identities about it.
Because I did see on the counter you had those dodecahedron dice down there. There was a couple of dice like.
Oh yes, so yes, that's what the proper word is, dodecahedron. That's for the 20-sided dice. Well, dodecahedron, right? 12-sided. 12. Yeah. So we have 4 12-sided dice downstairs, and the idea is most people, they come into breweries, especially travelers, they want to get a flight. So we don't call it a flight here, we call it a fleet for an Armada. And when they come in, they can either pick their own fleet for a set price, which is a set price, or we actually offer them a discount if they just let fate decide it and they roll the 4 dice and they get to choose it. Obviously no doubles, so if you get a double, you re-roll it. The idea is you get 4 different random beers, and the idea is to encourage people to try new beers. So monetarily, that's the most encouraging thing for people, is try something new by, you know, saving money.
Oh, is that it works. It does work.
Yeah. So to answer your last question, and we'll close it off on that, would be the name Armada, where did it come from, what was the identity? That came, the name Armada came from me just going through a bunch of names. The premise of the identity of a brand always existed. We just needed a name for that storyline. Needed a name for that brand. And it really came down to Armada because it was somewhat of a nautical idea, but also just the name of a story. And kind of like Star Wars, you know, they're not really having fights or wars on stars, you know, and whatnot, and Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings. And maybe that might be a little, that one you could probably relate to, but the idea was just having a name, and Armada Brewing kind of all encompasses the entire fleet.
Just a whole bunch of stuff, basically.
So that was our idea behind it. It is a nautical identity, we understand that, but it's also, the idea is fleet, story, and bringing it together. And there's the privateers, so there is nautical things. There's Neptune, there's Mermaid and whatnot. And Fortune Raider, obviously, was a big kind of hybrid diver mixed with like, he had all types of mollusks, or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah, the
exactly.
Yeah, mollusks.
Yeah, right, I want to say it right. Yeah, growing all over them. Yeah. So, that was kind of like where that idea came from. It's not directly related. There's no Santa Maria, Pinto, whatever they call it. It's not like stupid boat names. Sorry if you own a boat and you have a stupid boat name. It's nothing like historical like that. It is just a story name.
That's good. It's interesting to hear things like this. But I guess the very last thing we should do is if people want to get a good idea of the spectrum of Armada's beers, what would you say if you could pick maybe 3 or maybe 4 or 5 is a better thing. If you recommend 5 beers for people to try from you that gives them a good idea of what you're all about, what would you say?
All right, so the 5 beers I'd recommend, I would start off with our Neptune Zager. Well, I would start off with our Neptune Zager Pale Ale. From there, if you want to go full spectrum, you can go Savage Queen Double IPA, if you like that. Mermaid Cove, Tomb of the Pharaohs. I'm kind of playing favorites. I don't want to, right now I'm really digging our Oktoberfest. So I wanted to say, especially even though maybe 20 people have had it so far, it hasn't even dropped yet. So I'm really digging that. But I would say our Dunkel Lager, so the Sorcerer's Temple, another spot. I think I named 5 right there.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing.
Dagger, Mermaid, Queen, Tomb, just to get a general premise. If you want to really get in depth, you come into the location and we have we have a porter here, we have all types of sours, you name it.
Yeah, that's it. I have to say, good selection of styles here. But I think probably what we're going to do, we've been sitting chatting for 50 minutes. This is going to be a separate video from the Out and About. I think this can be a proper whole Meet the Brewer segment, actually.
I like it.
We'll do it like that. So John has been very generous with his time. Obviously, brewers are stupidly busy when it comes to it. So John, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, brother.
Thank you for sitting in.
Thanks for making the visit.
No, it's been really cool. I just came down here and I've really enjoyed my hours here. I think I still need to try the black IPA after we finish.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So we have collaborations, so we incorporated that. But yes, you got to do it.
I'm going to do that one. But thank you to John for his time. We'll round it off there. If you find yourself in Connecticut, there's about 100 or so breweries here. Armada is just about a mile out of, just to the east of New Haven. Lots of good pizza. Come and check it out. So Armada Brewing, New Haven. If you like your lagers, you will enjoy your time here. And try the other stuff as well. I think it's really good. But I will catch you guys a little bit later on. Thank you, John. I'll put all the brewery's social media in the description below, my social media as well. But this will be a separate Out and About. Well, this is going to be a separate Meet the Brewery segment rather than Out and About. But thank you to John. I will catch you guys on another video. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.
Cheers.